Prince Harry finally meets his father, so is a reconciliation on the cards.
He was in the UK for 4 days this week.
It did kind of feel as if where had the last 5 years gone?
It has felt different. He has felt happier.
The importance here is about their relationship. Harry said that he wanted reconciliation.
If he does want to make up with his family, then he has to keep stum about them.
Harry is still the king's son at the end of the day.
He's not a working member of the royal family. He's still a royal, but he's not representing the royal family.
Can I get excited? Could we see them as one big happy family in the not too distant future?
So I think
Hello and welcome to Talking Royals. I'm Charlene White and I'm joined by Chris and Lizzie as per usual. And an old friend of the show, former royal editor Emily Andrews has joined us as well. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Slightly different set from the last time you were here. Do you like it?
I love it. Love what you've done with the furniture.
Thank you so much. Lizzie and I were in charge. Chris had nothing to do with it.
No, I chose the rug.
I was going to say, Chris, did you do the floor?
Justina in the gallery chose the rug and she's done a wonderful
She's
job
done
of
an
it.
absolutely brilliant job. What's the week been like? A bit busy, isn't it?
quiet one with barely. But, yeah.
Nobody came. I haven't been standing out in the rain outside Clarence House. You remember how miserable doorsteps are when you can't leave a doorstep because you don't know when someone's going to come or go. And we were outside Clarence House / Buckingham Palace for much of the day on Wednesday.
So do you guys just stand out there and hope that he'll walk out at some point?
It's kind of a combination of a bit of intelligence and...
Oh, this is Harry we're talking about.
Yes, that can be very thin on the ground sometimes. You put together little bits of intelligence with how you know they operate and what the police might do to avoid you, and then you try and cover all bases. Kind of how it works.
Yeah. So one of you at Buckingham Palace, the other one at Clarence House.
We actually were both at Clarence House because the king had flown back from Balmoral, he'd flown to Northolt, and we saw him drive in to Clarence House. So we knew the king was at Clarence House, and then we knew there was a small window that Harry had on Wednesday afternoon where a meeting was possible. Harry had a gap in his schedule. So,
What happens? It's like Harry WhatsApp you with a schedule and go, "Hi, Chris.
Totally.
Hi, Lizzie.
I'm just driving down the road to see Dad now. Maybe get your
stand
camera.
by.
I wish. Remember, our life's so much easier because we could have spent the whole day in a cafe instead. So.
Now, I've come armed with some royal tidbits for you.
Oh,
are you
sort of
like?
love.
I know.
I love a tidbit.
I know you do. So, what have we learnt this week? 3 things I think you might be interested in.
Okay.
The first, Harry and Meghan have been watching Hostage on Netflix.
I've watched it.
Very
Yeah.
good. Saran Jones. Very
Very
good. At number 2, Prince Louis is practicing the drums.
Ooh, I suppose his house is big enough for that not to just annoy everybody that lives there.
And number 3, you're going to like this one. The Princess of Wales can tie her hair up in a bun without a hairband. Yeah.
I can do that.
Are you going to show us?
Are you going to show us?
No. How about you? No, I could. So use a pen.
Oh, no. Just no pens, nothing.
I have no pen.
Did it without any pen.
So I can do it with pen.
And then tucked it under.
It never stops on this beat.
Wow.
Do you need longer hair to do that?
Yeah.
Than you have.
I mean, you can try, Chris. Oh, to just do it with I can do it with nothing, but why when I always have a pen? I'm a journalist. So I always have a pen with me, so I can do that.
You know, most journalists say to the cameraman who's there with his tripod and his camera and his microphone, "Oh, have you got a pen?" And every cameraman will always say, "Typical journalist."
That is
no
actually
pen.
the story of our lives, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so we've got to talk about Harry because he has been all over the press. I won't say stalking, but it feels like the press have been stalking him all week. But it turns out you actually knew what his schedule was anyway.
Well, you know, we were just saying actually before we started recording, it wasn't stalking. We were invited to be there. And the operation that they put in place, is that Emily knows this very well from her time doing this job for many years, felt, dare I say it, very royal. It felt like the kind of thing you'd have in place when you're royal. Emily, explain how it works.
Well, I mean, it did kind of feel as if where had the last 5 years gone? Because to put it into context, obviously, you know, the Duke of Sussex has been estranged effectively from his family for pretty much the last 5 years. But here he was this week looking like the Prince Harry role, very relaxed, doing very typical royal jobs, charity visits, and of course, you know, that visit to Ukraine, which we'll talk about later. But the way that royal visits are organised is you get, we, the journalists, get emailed op notes, operation notes, and it has a couple of paragraphs about what each visit or engagement is about, and then it has all the press arrangements. There's a rota maybe of like one journalist, one camera person, one producer who can be right next to the royal, and then the other.
Remember how much Harry said in Netflix he didn't like the royal rota, as it were. I mean, and what it means by rota is rather than have 17 cameras in filming him, you have one camera, and then when it's our turn, we then get that footage, we share it with the BBC, Sky, and others.
And that happened this week.
And that happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was so interesting was how relaxed and happy Harry was that was happening. Cast our mind back. I mean, we don't want to park on too much about the past, but cast your mind back 5 years ago, and there was that extraordinary statement from Harry and Meghan on their website, sussexroyal.com, which is now, I think, I don't think it's shuttered. I think they have changed it slightly in the interim, but they put out that statement basically that they hated all the press, that one of the reasons they were leaving the UK was because of the press, and that they were only going to work with grassroots individuals. And now it's gone back to...
all entitled to change our minds.
We are.
It's a bit like, I didn't used to like, I don't know, say you didn't used to like apples, bright green dresses, and then suddenly can't get enough of it. We are sort of allowed to, and one could argue he's matured a bit in the last.
Yeah, the whole visit has actually been interesting from before he'd even landed. The last few times Prince Harry has visited the UK, he's been here for court cases. The last time he was back was in April. And this visit, we were told Prince Harry is here in a much better headspace. He's feeling positive, he's excited about being in the UK, and we're looking at a bit of a reset. And we sort of thought, okay, and let's see if that happens. And it really has felt different. He has felt happier. He has, been in front of the cameras. When he arrived in Nottingham on Tuesday, he arrived and stood outside in front of lots of lenses, chatting and having fun. And I thought that is a real difference to what we would have seen.
Knowing that all the press were there, because before he would have he could have easily gone through the door and met everyone inside, but he decided to do the meeting, the chatting, the hello outside. Why? Well, because he wants the press to see that he's here. And but also, it definitely felt like a different kind of visit.
Is it a reset, though? Considering, as you said, all the other reasons why he's been here before, and especially the last interview he gave regarding the court case, which surprised so many of us and perhaps didn't come across in the way that he perhaps was hoping it would. Could this be argued be a reset where he's like, I'm here, yes, I've said things before that I shouldn't have done about you guys, but I realise that it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
You know what? He didn't say a single thing in any of his public utterances about the royal family. So, even on Monday, when he could, arguably and justifiably have said something about the late Queen's anniversary, Monday was Accession Day, the 3rd anniversary of the death of Queen Elizabeth. He could have said, obviously, we've all been thinking about my grandma today, and we know that he did make a private visit to her grave in St George's Chapel in Windsor. But clearly, he and his aides and the communication team, the new communication team, have decided whatever you say about the royal family is going to obviously jump above everything else. So stick to the subject, stick to the Well Child charity, stick to Invicta, stick to the Nottingham crime problems, and don't say a single thing about the royal family. And that's exactly what happened.
For me, there's two things going on this week. One was perhaps either a recognition by Harry himself or by his team that his popularity has, if you look at all the opinion polls that have been done over the last couple of years, his popularity is very, very low, both here and in the States.
Not as low as Prince Andrew's?
Not as low as Prince Andrew. But if we're even talking
that.
about Prince Harry and Prince Andrew in the same sentence, that is really bad news.
Given where he was.
Given that he was the most popular royal, and Harry is still, I'm sure, a great guy. He's still very fun. There has been a sense, at least in the public narrative, that he kind of lost his way a little bit, maybe. A lot of people didn't agree with him selling out the royal family for large sums of cash. So I think that is maybe a recognition either by him or his team that he wants to regain the kind of the PR narrative, a bit more popularity, doing what Harry does best, which is the visits we saw this week. I think the other thing, as you've just said, Chris, is also a recognition, which frankly, I think is only a recent perhaps recognition, that if he does want to come back to the UK with his wife and children, and if he does want to make up with his family, as he keeps telling us he does, who knows what the King and the Queen and William and Kate think of these public announcements all the time that I want to reconcile with my family after everything he said. But if he does want to make up with his family, then he has to keep stum about them.
Yes.
Because otherwise, those meetings, that meeting with the King this week would not have happened if there hadn't been that lack of any chat from Harry since May, when he made those very ill-advised comments.
The King had to get over this level of trust. If I tell you anything private about my health or about anything else, that has to remain private, and it can't find its way onto Netflix, a new book, or your next television interview.
And I think perhaps that's quite... It's not even a shift for him. It's how it always has been for him. But one could argue perhaps that where he's been living in the States for a long time, things do work slightly differently there, that there's a chance that he had forgotten what happens there and how they deal with press and secrets and not leaking things all the time. That works slightly different there. When you're doing it here and it's about the royal family, it's a whole different kettle of fish. So perhaps he's been reminded that you have to do things differently here.
Yeah, and I think, neither side guided at all this week on a meeting. We just had to look at, the schedules and where they were. We knew the King was starting the week in Balmoral. We knew Prince Harry had various engagements in London. We knew that Wednesday was looking like the best opportunity for them to meet, but they didn't guide us on that. And the contents of that meeting, he was inside Clarence House for about 55 minutes, but the contents of that meeting haven't leaked at all. And, both sides put out the same statement.
That was very interesting. They had obviously coordinated with each other. Buckingham Palace and Harry's team had coordinated with each other. Exactly the same statement went out at exactly the same time.
And that in itself tells you that when we'll go back to the Peace Summit / Coffee Morning we've spoken to about before, that's clearly the point of that, was that the two communications teams needed to work in tandem, and they did on this.
Can I get excited? Could we see them as one big happy family in the not too distant?
So I think what.
So I have literally just written that. I've written that question. I've answered that question in 1,000 words.
So it is progress. Of course, it's progress. It's the first time they've come together in 19 months since he saw him when he was first diagnosed with cancer. But look, there is a lot that has happened in that time. There is a lot of trust to rebuild here. And yes, it's a good first step. But, what next? Okay, first of all, they need to see that Harry, can be trusted on both sides, really. That this isn't going to appear anywhere.
And then just a one big happy family. I mean, yes, Harry and King, they've...
I know the William stuff, but I know that's...
Pop William into the whole equation, and there ain't nothing there.
You know what? In my head, he wasn't... And it's going to sound awful, but he wasn't even in the equation when I was like, one big happy family, because I know that relationship is going to take a lot more than a coffee morning.
And we should say, at one point when Harry was laying the wreath at the Queen's grave, and William and Kate on the same day were in Sunningdale doing something about the WA, another of the late Queen's favourite causes. They were 8 miles apart, 7.8 miles. I wrote 8, some people wrote 7, but you get the picture. Yeah. They weren't that far apart, didn't meet.
The King, the King Harry is still the King's son at the end of the day. And he's got grandchildren that he has barely seen. And, there must, on his part, he must want to see them. And how do we get to that stage?
Do you know what? Because we're all feeling very reflective, I think about how things used to be. Do you know what? I think it's a really good time for us to look at the old times and how they used to be. And I think that's going to be our archive slot today.
Okay.
We're going back to the year 2000. Let me set the scene. This was before the King got married to Camilla, before the boys found their partners. It was a simpler time. And the three of them went skiing. Let's take a look.
As they perched on a bench, the photographers suggested father give sons a hug.
My arms aren't long enough to get around there.
So perhaps William would take the initiative?
Oh, yes, how nice of you,
Then, of course, it was Harry's turn.
I'm not very of you are. Putting my hand on. Don't rub his hair.
Give us a hug, Dad. Yes, okay.
Simple time.
Okay.
I would have been a royal correspondent in those days. Would have been so simple, isn't it? Here they go skiing, and let's talk about them having a lovely time.
Sad, isn't it, though? Like, they are a family, and we have seen a very public fracturing of that family.
And we did actually hear Harry ask about siblings the other day when he was at the Well Child Awards. What did he say? So it's
what did he say?
Well, let's have a listen to what he was talking to one of the award winners, but he was asking him about whether he had any siblings, and we all suddenly went, have a listen.
Have you got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother.
14 at the minute, turns 15 next month.
Does he drive you mad, or does he not?
No, we get along fine. We're like friends.
I love the correction. You know what, siblings?
Yeah.
You're not the same school.
Yeah, we are.
You're the same school as well.
Yeah.
That sometimes makes it more challenging.
Yeah, it can be quite challenging going to the same school.
So if you couldn't hear that, does he drive you mad? Was his first question to this award winner about his sibling.
Awkward.
Do we read too much into this though, guys?
Of course.
I mean,
Of
like,
course.
Well, we wouldn't have a show if reading.
Well, let's stop recording now then.
but discuss. I mean, obviously Harry knows the cameras are on him.
Yeah.
Obviously he knows. Is he? I mean, it's a nice thing to say to a 15-year-old boy, you know, siblings, you want to have the chats. Harry's great with kids. # Harry with kids.
Brilliant.
But is that a pointed comment? Or is it
His
just...
first question would be, do you have siblings? Do you get on really well? And do you love him loads? But his first question was, do you have siblings? Does he drive you mad? So I'm not saying we should
That
get much into it.
The first question I'd ask is my siblings do drive me.
To be fair, I think we'd all ask. Similar thing.
So we woke up this morning. Did you guys know what was going to happen when we woke up this morning? We saw the headlines. So we woke up this morning, and as usual, because we're all journos, the first thing we do is not to necessarily check the socials. Is we have a look at the newspapers, and actually it flashed up on my phone as an alert from one of the papers, from The Guardian actually, that said that he had visited Ukraine, which of course he has done before, but this time it was connected to his work with wounded servicemen and women.
Well, listen, did we know about it? We knew Harry wasn't going back to California, and we knew Harry was going somewhere that was highly secure, as I say, OPSEC in the business. If you asked me Ukraine, I would have said that would have been in my guess.
Okay.
Estimations. But here we are. This is Harry getting off the train in Kyiv.
So he'd gone from Poland to Kyiv, hadn't he?
Yes. Yeah. So that was where they were going after his 4-day visit to the UK, which is brilliant. Invictus, and he's done a lot of work with Invictus this week. So they wouldn't tell us where he's going, but we did suspect, didn't we? He was somewhere else.
And it's with, as Chris says, his Invictus Games Foundation. It's all about coming up with initiatives to help wounded personnel. And he said actually in the interview that he did with Guardian on the train how, at the Invictus Games, you have competitors there from Ukraine and they are returning home to war. And I remembered, do you remember when we were at one of the games and we met lots of the Ukrainian team and how kind of, shocking it was that they had come and they were having to go back and return to their country to war.
So we're talking about the present, which is a big difference.
Yeah.
And he has built up it's obviously not the first time that he's gone, but he has built up quite a connection with Ukraine and service personnel. And I suppose in an era where conflict elsewhere really does dominate the headlines, it's easy to forget that there still is a conflict in Ukraine. And I suspect that by Harry being there, it helps bring it slightly further up the news agenda.
Definitely. And he actually said that himself. So you've been reading his briefing notes, Charlie. But no, he said that himself. If me being here, I think last time he went to, forgive me if I pronounce it wrong, Lviv, which is in the far west of Ukraine, which is very close to the Polish border. So it hasn't been the focus of fighting. Kyiv, obviously the capital of Ukraine, much more heavily bombed, and
is being bombed.
And it's being bombed. Yes, exactly. A government building was just bombed.
I suspect you won't be staying there overnight. I suspect to be on the plane this afternoon.
In and out. And he did have to ask Meghan's permission to check in that he could go. But on a more important point, he also said that he had to check with the British government that it was okay for him to go. And I think that there speaks to the slight problem with what Harry is doing. Yes, he's had a great week. Yes, it's been like Harry of old. Yes, he's been relaxed and great and brought a lot of attention to charities and doing exactly what he wanted, which was bringing attention to injured service personnel in the Ukraine and the war with Russia. But he's not a working member of the royal family. He's still a royal, but he's not representing the royal family. He had to ask the British government to go. They said yes, but he's not protected by the British state. I mean, this is all, we're in kind of new uncharted territory.
But my question would be, what's the problem with that?
Because I think that it's a problem for the rest of the royal family. And I think that's one of the reasons why the king had to meet him this week. Because for us royal geeks, obviously, I hope you don't mind, Shara, including you in the royal geek.
Sure.
Yeah,
Geek,
be a royal geek with us.
Yeah.
For us geeks, obviously we appreciate the difference between the non-working royal and the working royal. But for like 99.9% of the rest of the world, Harry is still a member of the royal family. He's still a personal member of the royal family. Of course he is. He's always said that. But he's still representing them.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when whatever his next steps, it'd be very interesting to see what his next steps are. Is he going to do another commercial venture? Is he going to do, for instance, is he going to do a documentary about the death of his mother, 25 years, which potentially he could? That is him not representing the royal family. It's himself, and he's getting paid for that. Now, you might say, what's the difference? Because he and William did a big interview for the 20th anniversary of her death. But the thing is, they weren't paid. And I do think it's a problem for the royal family. And that's why I think they do actually need to repair those fences.
Do you know what, you make a really interesting point about security. And of course, one of the reasons why Harry didn't come with Meghan or the children, because he says Harry doesn't get any protection. Now, oddly, on Monday, when we were with him at Wellchild, like the Metropolitan Police, therefore taxpayer-funded security, were coming into the hotel. We had sniffer dogs in our room. They were checking things out, clearly doing their job. I did, however, note in Nottingham, not a single member of the Nottinghamshire Constabulary were there when his car turned up. There were members of the public outside, but not a single member of the public, the police were there. This is the car that he's been using. That's the American employed bodyguard.
So who was he with? Just like his mate?
Yeah, so these people are either employed by him or by the organisation that he's there at. And this
I love that he got like that, to be perfectly honest.
This was what
so cool with
Emmy was talking about earlier, when he sort of hung outside and just didn't run in the door. But I thought, where are the police? There were crowds, and not a single member of the force was there. And driving in and out of London with a tube strike going on this week, he didn't have any blues and twos. He was stuck in the traffic like everybody else. I don't know. I kind of thought, you're still in the line of succession. After George, Charlotte and Louis, it's Prince Harry who's next. So you're still the king's son.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the public struggle to get their head around with the whole paying, having our police force here guard him when he's out and about, is if anything were to happen to him, then whose fault is that then? Because you say he is still in succession and he's not like 25th or what have you. He's in, as you say, he's in the top 5. So therefore, by not allowing him to have that police protection, if something were to happen to him, we also have to take responsibility for accepting that it was a choice to not give him that protection. Yeah. And I think that's a really difficult discussion that perhaps those royal circles have to have, because yes, they may not necessarily like the work that he's doing. Yes, he's not necessarily working royal, but he is still in succession.
I hear Harry's team were given a phone number to call if something went wrong. Now, if you're being attacked, heaven forbid that would happen, but if you were being attacked or there was some security risk, what are you meant to do? Pick up the phone and say, oh, by the way, can you get down to...
Call 999. I mean, that's what it was kind of suggested. It was basically, that was the sort of backup.
I mean, I personally thought that if it's meant to be a bespoke security plan, I didn't see very much security apart from, we saw it, didn't we, at the hotel on Monday?
On Monday, yeah.
And I know, as you say, we're in an uncharted territory, but perhaps when he falls back into favour with the general public, which it was, as you say, it was a really successful trip he had this week, perhaps when that tide starts to turn, then perhaps more members of the public will start questioning where that security is.
Well, I think if this is a start of Harry being less antagonistic, less confrontational, and I speak of as a former quite confrontational person who's been on my own.
You're a changed woman.
I am a changed. I've been on my own journey. But seriously, if this is the beginning, if it's a reset, as we said at the start, of his less confrontational, less antagonistic, don't forget he's said all that. We won't rehearse everything he said, but he's hurled a lot of kind of grenades and criticisms at both the individual people, personnel, the King, the Queen, William and Kate, and the institution of the monarchy. He's also sued the UK. He's sued His Majesty's government, the Home Office, to try and get his protection, personal protection, police protection back. That hasn't worked. If now he's effectively drawing a line under all of that and not being so confrontational and antagonistic, I actually think that that's you normally catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And I suspect that if he might see it as a capitulation, but I think it's just a better strategic move to play the game a bit.
We won't rehearse all the things he said, but obviously we noted, didn't we, Lizzie, on Wednesday when we were standing in the rain outside Clarence House, it was the King on his own. There was no Queen Camilla there, and clearly that helped the meeting happen because of everything Harry said about the Queen.
Catch more flies with honey than with... That's my new favourite phrase for the week, actually. Okay, let's move on to the King, Queen, William and Kate, because one set was in Scotland, the other set were in England, and one set, it has to be said, some say should have been in Scotland but weren't and chose to go to the rugby instead. So tell us what was going on.
So I think this is interesting. So every year the royal family turn out for the Braemar gathering. It is very close to Balmoral Castle. You get tossing the caber, you get tug of war. They sit there and there were always brilliant photographs of the royal family watching. I mean, this year the Queen looked like she was in hysterics about something. But it is a sort of staple of the royal calendar and a sort of tradition that means an awful lot to the community there. However, we don't often see William and Kate and their children at the Braemar gathering.
And often, I can't see of a single time that they have been.
How do you think?
Actually,
I can't think.
I mean, I'm not saying they've never been. I'm just saying I don't remember a time when you always used to have the Prince of Wales, as in Prince Charles, used to be there with his mother, the Queen, and before that Prince Philip as well. But
I guess
Wales
part
just
of the reason
completely don't go.
School has started.
Yeah.
So, but it is on the weekend.
And this year,
And they have planes and helicopters, which they're not afraid to use for other.
And this year, in their role as patrons of rugby, they were both at various rugby matches. And what I thought was interesting is not only had they decided not to go to the Braemar gathering, but they had decided to do things that were really important to them. And I think what we've seen a lot with William and Kate is them kind of carving their own path. They're going to do things their own way.
How would that be reflected in Scotland?
That's a really good question, because it does mean, we've spoken to a lot of people involved in the Braemar gathering and in the community up there, and it does mean a lot, not just that community, but the optics are really good, aren't they, for the royal family's relationship with Scotland.
And this is part of the world, but you look at any opinion poll, and there was actually one out this week saying the royal family are sort of less popular now than they were when they first started recording these figures in 1983. But in Scotland, they're much less popular than they are in England, and there's obviously a generational difference, that none of that's new. But the fact that William's never been photographed in a kilt. Now, is that a snub to people in Scotland? Do they think he should? I mean, the King wears one when he's there, and this could be a potential point of friction.
I imagine it's very easy to just throw on a kilt when you're hanging around in Scotland, or if you're Balmoral or what have you. I feel like it's really difficult to choose not to be pictured in a kilt.
And it is just one of those traditions that you wonder what is going to happen to that when William and Kate are in the new reign. And we know for there are lots of different examples with William and Kate where they want to do things differently. Like, they have fewer patronages. They've made the decision that we're going to have a small handful of patronages, and we're really going to focus on a small number of causes. And William has said before he wants to do royal with a small r. So there are lots of things we can see that are going to be different, and it's just a tradition, I think, that we might see go.
And also, just very briefly, you saw how important the monarchy is with the union when we had the Scottish the referendum in Scotland about whether they wanted to secede from the union. A lot of stuff has come out recently from the political side about how absolutely, between the Queen's top aides and David Cameron, about how a photographer and a reporter were invited to Crathie Kirk up at Balmoral when the Queen went and met the crowds. And, she said she hoped people would think very carefully. That was all. I mean, at the time, of course, Buckingham Palace denied that there was any kind of premeditation in that. It's come to light that
we had Val on last week. He wrote about that and actually said that there were things both with the Scottish referendum and with the Brexit referendum that Downing Street could have used when it came to the royal family, but chose to leave them out, which is not what they did on the.
So it might just seem as if it's just an appearance at a games, but it's not. These things have a lot of significance.
Yeah, talking about significance. Trump's back for his festival next week.
The fest.
It's
happening.
Little segment.
We got lots more information about what's going to happen in Windsor and all of that stuff. But I do
missing an ambassador
they're missing an ambassador
who's no longer coming.
I reckon you could be like ambassador-like. You should fill in, Chris.
I would. I'm not particularly diplomatic.
There's a royal link. Actually, the guy who is standing in for Peter Patterson was the Queen's. James Roscoe was the Queen's communications secretary.
Oh my God,
So,
you could become ambassador.
There we go. In
Oh my
the
God,
future,
you'd be so good at it.
job for me.
But I remember you saying a few weeks ago, I can't remember if it was just to me or if just to us, like without the microphones on, or whether we did it actually on the podcast, actually, that the accommodation for Trump at Windsor would be very different from what perhaps he would have become accustomed to last time around when he was at Buckingham Palace, because they're two completely different buildings. Windsor Castle is a lot older.
Well, it's a bit drafty. It is a castle, hence as the name says. But actually, even Buckingham Palace, in many of the rooms there, were not that fancy. I mean, it's having a massive refurb at the moment. But do you remember all those pictures of the late Queen with her 3-bar electric fire sort of next to her? She was quite parsimonious at times. Anyway, listen. Maybe Donald Trump won't have one of the rooms with an ensuite. He might have to trot down the corridor, and you would. I mean, we don't know, but they'll be staying at.
Don't think the Secret Service would allow that.
But the security for Windsor next week, and obviously we've now learned that there will be a carriage procession. Now, the big difference, if you remember when Francois Macron came recently for the French state visit, they started it down by Windsor Station. They rode through not happening. Donald Trump. So everything that he is doing is within inside the walls of Windsor Castle. So they're basically doing a carriage procession from nowhere to nowhere.
Security.
They're literally going to trot around the castle grounds and no one's going to see them.
But and you're right to say,
Are they going to go down the long walk?
Not where the public can access it. No.
No, so it will all be within castle grounds. The president arrives on Tuesday. He arrives at Windsor Castle on Wednesday. There will be the sort of ceremonial welcome that you've seen before. As Chris says, they're getting the carriages out for a carriage procession, but again within the grounds, so the public
like a joyriding him.
What's the point in a carriage? I mean, the whole purpose
during a sleepover.
The point of a carriage is to see the people in it, isn't it? That's the whole reason why they were designed, is so that the monarch can be seen by the crowds. Here they can be like riding around the castle. Who's going to watch them? The horses, the other members of the household.
But this isn't about. It's not
I'm
about.
not surprised. This is what we thought would happen.
It's about what Trump wants. And I mean, I remember last time when he came and it was at Buckingham Palace, and I remember being inside the picture gallery on the first floor of Buckingham Palace, and you could hear, because it was quite warm, so the windows were open, you could hear the protesters outside yelling. Right. So that's part of the reason, I think, why actually Windsor Castle at this time is. It's part. The reason it's not at Buckingham Palace is because they're still almost finished the resurfacing works, but it still has a lot of building work going on, and so it's probably quite a good thing it's happening at Windsor Castle, so everything can be so secure.
Yeah, and there'll be a big state banquet on the Wednesday evening, which is
who's going? Do we know?
Oh, hold on. Last time we had the cocktail, didn't we? After the state banquet, not that you liked it very.
Should we promise?
Should we
do
try
the
and
same next week? If it's not like a really complicated one. So what we did last time, Emily, is we basically looked at what the special cocktail was that was made.
And it was
we went
to
to get the ingredients, and we basically made one ourselves.
Love it.
And tested them on the show. So should we do that next week?
we should. I think we should.
You two didn't like
that's American.
You didn't like the pasties, did you?
The anaesthesia flavor in it. So that's Wednesday night. And then on Thursday, the president goes to Chequers with the Prime Minister. There will be a few elements at Windsor Castle. The First Lady is going with the Queen to see the Royal Library and Queen Mary's doll's house. And then she's going to join the Princess of Wales in the gardens of Frogmore.
Queen and the doll's house is a house full of dolls?
It was present.
Oh, yes, sorry.
It's a almost life-size recreation of a doll's house. I know, yeah. And you can go in it. You can have tea. In fact, there's a very famous picture, I think, of Harry and Meghan having tea inside the doll's house. It was made for the late Queen Elizabeth, by my memory's going to fail me now, but it was made for the late Queen and her sister Margaret. It's a life-size doll's house. It was I want to say it has a Welsh connection. Anyway,
that's what it is. They're going to go for a little bit of a walk.
They're going to go for a walk.
And the library, obviously, for Queen Camilla, literacy is a big thing for her. And then in the gardens of Frogmore with the Princess of Wales, they'll be with the Scouts. And
yay! Is Bear Grylls going to be there as well?
He's not. No,
he's not Chief Scout anymore.
Or is it not?
Gets handed over.
But the Chief Scout will be there.
Oh, cool.
You do wonder what Melania is going to make of all of this. Her face is always a picture, and it's just
what on earth am I? Stepping
They get to stay in a castle
from 1934.
which means that what Trump will still be able to fly back home and tell all of his sort of Republican team, I got to stay in a castle,
with
a real castle,
the king.
with the king, with the queen.
And think about how important all those pictures are for Donald Trump as well, because they'll be the usual guard of honor and the march past and everything else.
I mean, no crowds, but it still have the pictures, just very tight shot.
Well, there is a protest, but it's just that Donald Trump won't see it. So the crowds are being kept and the protest is happening, but it won't be anywhere near.
So state dinner, any steers as to which sort of big American stars maybe based here might be going?
No, we tend to get invited in just ahead of the state banquet to, like we did last time for the French state visit, we get to go in, we get to walk around the table, you get to see all the place settings and see what names are there. And at that moment we find...
And the name with Lord Peter Mandelson on it has been picked off the table and...
crossed out.
But they I think I said last time, it takes about a week to put the table together, to lay it all in.
Could the names be on the table as we speak?
Probably not at this.
Not yet.
Probably.
I think that's
still building.
Well, we can have a bit of fun speculating. I mean, like, who are the...
Stanley Tucci, I would say.
Yeah.
That's a big American.
Well, I think it has to be Republican. You have to be. And the problem with, I mean, massive generalisation, obviously, but with Hollywood royalty, they do tend to be quite Democrat.
Yeah.
A lot of them did come out for Obama and also for Biden, although not so much because people saw the writing on the wall. So it will be really interesting. I mean, I think Trump, I hear from my sources that Trump has been pretty explicit who he wants to bring with him. And he's been pretty explicit who is allowed, who's on the list and who isn't. And another little fun detail, the Americans wanted to bring the Beast, the president's limousine.
Yes.
Yeah. But they can't because it doesn't fit through the gateway at Windsor Castle. So they can't use the Beast. Yes.
I remember seeing the Beast once when I was a political correspondent in Downing Street. It must have been Obama or something. And it couldn't actually do it wasn't a 3-point turn. It was like a 96-point turn in Downing Street because it's
so narrow
and heavy and doesn't manoeuvre.
I mean,
very well.
Downing Street's very
and Downing Street comes to a dead end.
Huge American car.
It's not going to fit through that archway. No.
So they can't fit down our gangway.
Yeah, anyway,
down our corridor. Right, finally, have you been getting some fathering advice from Harry, even though yours are a bit bigger now?
I haven't. So we've had some exclusive words from Prince Harry. Now, before you say, what did you ask him? I didn't ask him anything. Our cameras were allowed to film in a room where one of the award winners from Well Child. So this, goes back to what we were saying earlier. Harry had a very heavily media-controlled operation, and no one was going to get to ask him about Queen Elizabeth, King Charles or Prince William. But the award winner from Well Child, who's called Dylan, lovely chap, got to sit down and got the scoop, the world exclusive, and we got to film it. And Harry did give some advice about being a father.
I am actually expecting a child of my own. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Do you have any advice at all on that?
Do I have any advice?
Because I'm hoping he's not as unpredictable as some of the Well Child children.
You know it's a boy.
Yes, it's a boy, yeah.
How many months until?
8 weeks to go.
8 weeks to go.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done so already, start talking to him. Because parenting starts before the baby's delivered.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely convinced by that. And then I would say make sure that you are free of any stress, especially right at the beginning, and be able to be there with him right in those early days, early weeks, and just spend as much time as you can with them. Because no matter what's going on around the world, they will ground you and have fun.
Thank you.
Laugh at every amazing moment. You will on.
I'll certainly take it all in.
That will happen. It doesn't matter. It's normally probably going to be changing diapers.
Yeah.
But I think that the first time that they smile and the first time they laugh, that's probably the most special moment.
Prince Harry just say what I think?
You will have poo on you, I think is what he was.
Oh, that's a translation. Okay, thanks very much for that.
Yes, your child at some point, as we, anyone who's changed a nappy will know, will at some point deposit something on your person.
I do love him talking about his being a father, and as you've just said, he's really good with kids.
He's really good. Well Child is, and he comes back annually for it. It is an award ceremony for seriously ill children, and every year I'm sort of blown away by the children and their families. And Harry is I think, at his absolute best when he's with those
That's where we got
children.
sword fighting, wasn't it?
We did.
That Meghan then shared on her.
But standing just behind him, and then
There we go.
and Marley, he's drawn a balloon sword out, and he just does everything possible to make these children feel at ease. There was a little girl just before this one, and he said, "Actually, can we just have a minute?" She was getting a little bit upset by the cameras, so he said, "Can we just have a minute?" And he really is very aware. And
I like him in his dad era.
yeah,
It suits him. He should make more of that, I think.
So maybe this is Harry 2.0. I think that's what this week is, isn't it?
We're probably on like 3
or 3, but I mean, since he's left, since he's left the royal family, this is Harry 2.0, and I think, and all of that, acrimony. He looks like he's parked it for now.
Yeah, and they're also just out of the really difficult stage when you have 2 children very close in age. And when they're super young, you're almost like in a fog, and they're kind of out of that bit as well. So perhaps he's feeling a bit more alive and has got a bit more energy and able to, do things in the way that best serves him and his family. But we're kind of at the end, but I just wanted to let our audience know we're going to be popping up somewhere else next week, aren't we? Where will we be, Chris?
We have progressed from podcast to YouTube and ITVX, and from next week we'll also, additionally, be on ITV1 on a Sunday morning.
Yes, although as someone reminded me yesterday, 12:30 p.m. is technically Sunday afternoon.
When I said morning, I meant afternoon.
So yes, details. We know you're not the details man. Yes, from next week Sunday at 12:30 p.m. For those of us who are our British audience, you'll be able to watch us on ITV1 but continue to watch us on ITVX for our debut on the channel. So make sure you do join us for 12:30. We will have cocktail hour. We'll be looking at all things Trump related, and who knows, so much stuff can happen in a week in Royals, right?
You're right.
Emily, you can come back anytime. It's always such a joy to have you and your fabulous silver boots. And see you both next week when we are back. And of course, we're back here, we're back on YouTube, we're back on ITVX, and we will be debuting on ITV. But until then, you can hear us wherever you get your podcasts. You can hear us every week at Talking Royals by subscribing, review, listen to your podcast. But do have a look through our back catalogue for a range of royal topics. So see you next week when Donald Trump will be here in the UK for his state visit at the castle, and we'll work out what we're going to watch from here on the big telly, won't we? What we're going to wear. We'll work that out. So we'll see you next week.